With Disney laying claim to Netflix's superhero originals, Netflix has started their venture into non-Marvel-based comic adaptations with Dark Horse's The Umbrella Academy. Based off the comic written by My Chemical Romance's frontman Gerard Way, this X-Men reminiscent series is now streaming, and I'm here to give you the skinny on how the Hargreaves kids' small screen debut went. I'm Kris Carr. Let's talk The Umbrella Academy on Nerdflix and Chill.
Oh, yeah.
Before we dive in, I'd like to thank our Patreon sponsors. We're a team of 4 grinding and binging over here, so with support from viewers like you, we can keep bringing you content. Want to learn how to help? Head to our Patreon page. Now, for a quick warning. Dudes, this is a review. There will be spoilers. You don't want that? Boogie on out of this video until you're caught up on the series. The Umbrella mythology begins in October 1989 with the inexplicable birth, on the same day, of 43 children to previously unpregnant mothers all over the world. A kooky Charles Xavier type, industrialist and gold medalist Sir Reginald Hargreaves, finds and adopts 7 of these children. The kids turn out to have extraordinary abilities, so naturally the old man molds them into a crime-fighting squad known as the Umbrella Academy. At the beginning of the series, we see that child number 5 has disappeared, child 6, Ben, is dead, and the group slowly dismantles, leaving only number 1 behind with dear old dad, until he gets stationed up on the moon. The series kicks off much like the comics, with the death of the kid's adoptive dad. If you want a super in-depth explanation of the entire Umbrella Academy plot across all 3 volumes, go check out my Crash Course video. For now, let's focus on where the show takes things. For comic purists, I'll let you know right now, guys, I don't know if you'll be happy with the changes. The series feels like a very grounded version of its source material. Aside from a bank heist they foil, we don't see a lot of the actual superpowered moments from the story. Some things work really well, like weaving Diego into the story more. Now, originally in Volume 1, there isn't a lot of Diego. Here, we're given a lot more of him. His work as a vigilante, his relationship to his family, his relationship with Mom, who, oh, thank God, is still a robot, just like in the comics.
Mom, you gotta feel something.
He even gets some romantic history, which at first I thought they just changed this part from a chimpanzee detective to a lady cop because they blew through the Weta budget on Pogo.
Coming from the guy dressed in spandex?
It's not spandex, it's leather. And you used to like it a lot, if I recall.
God, please unremember that.
Etched into the databank, Eudora.
Nah, it was to give him some depth. He throws knives and is capable of love. There's some real great things the show sticks to, like Five's relationship to that mannequin Dolores that he found in the future when he was an old dude.
It's good to see you. I've missed you.
Dude, Five definitely banged that mannequin. How does he bang her? Where does he bang her? Whatever, you do you, Lars and the Half Girl. And we have some straight from the comic lines in there too.
I can get you cash. Amputee hookers, whatever.
Other choices, in my opinion, like bringing in Cha-Cha and Hazel more and rounding out their characters, actually hinders their effectiveness and stalls the plot. Now let's start with what works, because that is a much shorter list for me. Both Five and Klaus are brilliant in their roles. I'm blown away by this kid's ability to play a crotchety old man. He's got chops, which is bananas since the kid got his start on that Nickelodeon show, Nicky, Ricky, Dickie, and Dawn.
You cannot be serious.
As serious as a 3-legged possum in a slanted outhouse.
And Klaus is so fun. His story, as I'll go into later on in this review, definitely differs a bit from what Way put on the page, but it's very well done. I love the aesthetics of the show, I love the soundtrack, I adore the take on the title sequences, although some are definitely off-putting. Thanks, Dad. Welcome back from your coma. You're a gorilla now. Hargreaves is not one for subtlety. The action sequences typically are really kick-ass as well, and I think how they visually presented Vanya's powers was epic. This show should be good. It has so many things I love. Drunk children, robots, conspiracies, drugs, emotional trauma, superheroes punching stuff. And yet, I was left pretty disappointed. Maybe if I wasn't a fan of the comic, I'd be into it. But honestly, I just feel the pacing was so weird that even an Umbrella Academy virgin would be put off. I mean, truly, the pacing is bizarre, which has been a constant complaint of all Netflix super shows. They're overlong and could use a strong edit. We've seen it in stronger shows like Luke Cage and season 2 of Jessica Jones. And I don't need to get you guys started on Iron Fist all over the place with its storylines. Honestly, it makes sense. Comic fans are rabid with their fandoms, and we freak out if you change stuff or leave out details. You'll see me go pretty postal about a few things with this adaptation in just a second. But what often happens is that too many things get thrown into the mix, and we're left with a long-winded, wandering storyline and an assload of brooding.
Okay, come on, maybe they'll brood each other to death.
This live-action series combines the stories of the Apocalypse Suite and Dallas, which is a whole ton of content and ground to cover. You'd think they'd be utilizing every minute they're given to give us all that exposition. So why does it feel like it's taking forever? And with all this wealth of material, why do they waste so much time faffing around, looking sadly at everything and adding in new material?
Hate to rush you through any kind of brooding moment you might be having.
Rather than focusing on key elements, like 5 being charged to handle JFK's assassination and breaking his contract, it's tossed haphazardly into the beginning of episode 5. That event is the entire thrust of Volume 2, Dallas. That's why it's called Dallas. When you have a meaty story, why add in unnecessary stuff like more Hazel and Cha-Cha crap? I understand wanting to further develop characters, but instead of giving us a more rounded look at some of these guys, we're met with wasted opportunity and ambling. Granted, some changes seem to work, like Klaus being the only one to travel back to Vietnam. Klaus really delivers on all the curveballs thrown at him and his story. I also really enjoy Ben, aka the Horror, or number 6, hanging around Klaus, unbeknownst to the other siblings. That was a fantastic touch that was never in the comics, and I think worked really well and is super effective. But I'm not sold on other changes. And I warn y'all, again, there are gonna be spoilers up ahead, like Hazel and Cha-Cha. Their work relationship dynamic feels like they're part of an entirely different show. You wanna know what made Hazel and Cha-Cha so horrifying in the comics? We didn't know anything about them or why they were these insane psychopaths. And we didn't give a shit. They didn't even shoot Klaus. Netflix, why? It is a bad Netflix. Oh, for fuck's sake, did they swap masks? That's another thing, they're wearing the wrong faces. Nerd! Sometimes less is more. The less I know about Hazel and Cha-Cha, the better. I don't want to hear about how Hazel maybe doesn't want to be a killer, or how office politics and the agency's bureaucratic ways make him a grumpy guy. I don't want to see their faces. By giving these characters backstory and office water cooler conversations, the show has stripped them of their power. It's like, okay, remember the first 2 acts of Signs? How genuinely scary that alien seemed to be? And then you see the alien and its little fart finger and you're like, I'm scared of that asshole! That's how seeing the faces of Cha-Cha and Hazel made me feel. Why are they dour and pissy? They're supposed to be criminally insane. They're Joker, they're Harley, they're Deadpool. They're all Michael Madsen from Reservoir Dogs. Why have you done this? And Hazel, why in Pooh Perfect Heaven is he getting a love story with Agnes? You know what happens in the comics? Hazel and Cha-Cha brutally murder a cook in front of her. Is Agnes darling and adorable? You bet your sweet bippy she is, even with the heavy-handed bird references. But why do I need this with Hazel? He volunteers to stop the apocalypse? Why would you muzzle a cold-blooded killer like this? Hey guys, I know I've gone on a tangent, but come on. This is worse when they gave the Joker a grow. Moving on. Nobody asked for or wanted a love story arc for Vanya. While bringing in this Harold Leonard character gives us a clear-cut villain with his whole syndrome thing from the Incredibles vibe, I don't know if the romance was needed. It definitely makes us side with Vanya, makes us feel for her and her need to be loved by someone, but there's something to be said for how the comic just had her decide, on her own, hey, screw my family, let's end the freaking world.
There's nothing fair about being your sister.
Also, Vanya, girl, how did you not see that this dude was gonna be a bad guy?
It's crazy. I've been on this medication since I can't even remember. And I ran out yesterday, and I feel great.
If you feel better without it, then why bother even taking it?
Kids, if someone tells you to cold turkey your meds, that's a red flag. Don't date that person. Don't hang out with them. And definitely don't start your superpower training with them. They're gonna be evil. All he's missing is a mustache to twirl, you dummy. I'm all for the expansion of Vanya's role, especially with Ellen Page playing her. Her realization of her father and Allison betraying her is an incredibly powerful scene, and Paige, once finally given something meaty in the series, runs with it. And the fact that the show actually sticks to what Vanya does to Allison is very impressive. We get a completely different Vanya in the show, and all the stuff with Leonard takes on a very you story. By episode 9, I'll admit, I was finally on board with this new Vanya. She's layered, multifaceted, and I think overall, the changes made for a stronger story. I just wish we could have ditched Leonard somehow. Even Ellen looked unsure of it in their first scene together.
Looks like I chose the right teacher.
I don't know about that.
Also, As much as it upset me in the comics, I'm glad they stuck to Vanya killing Pogo. Granted, it's a lot less graphic, but hey, maybe audiences aren't into seeing lovable chimp butlers' brains explode. And kudos for bringing things home with all-white Vanya! White violin for the win! With the other concessions the show had made, I really didn't think they'd do it, so a tip of the hat to Netflix for at least giving us that iconic image. While in the comics as well, I think we do spend a little too much time on the Luther-Allison love story, which has always been questionable at best. Am I supposed to be rooting for legal but still technical incest? Maybe I would if this chick and Dean Chimpchester had any chemistry. And speaking of his ape-like appearance, guys, come on! Give me the old mutated Martian gorilla body story. I mean, kudos on at least showing us the gorilla body. And maybe I'm demanding too much here, but I want Luther's head attached on a gorilla body, not some super soldier serum the way of Planet of the Apes. Embrace the weirdness, y'all. This is Netflix, guys. A platform that doesn't have to play it safe with standards and practices. Yet that's all this show is doing. They don't even have the decency to shoot Klaus in the head and have him go meet Clint Eastwood a la Rango.
What?
You know how in Rango, how they allude to Clint Eastwood being God?
The Chameleon movie?
Yeah, he dies and then he goes to meet Cowboy God. So just like Rango. Instead, God is some bike riding girl and there's French music? I don't know. Also, Klaus dies from hitting his head at the club. For why? The guy survives his childhood, being tortured by psycho killers, Vietnam, and shuffles off the mortal coil because of a little slip and an ouchie on his noggin. Grow up, Netflix. I'm blown away by how this bombastic concept became so muted. I mean, the comic was written by My Chemical Romance's Gerard Way, for God's sake. The show should be so freaking punk rock, balls to the wall, blissfully violent, a thrill ride. But instead, it's so slow, tirelessly, and needlessly broody, you'd think it was written by the lead singer of Dashboard Confessional.
Open!
Yeah! And let's circle back to the music for a second. It felt like every song was trying to create an iconic moment. I've seen the Cornetto trilogy, guys. I'm not blown away by a shootout to Don't Stop Me Now. I've seen Simon Pegg kill zombies to it. Every big pop song felt like it was supposed to be a moment. And sometimes it worked. But overall, the show was so worried about being the cool X-Men and its aesthetics that it lost sight of why people resonated with the story in the first place. The reason why The Umbrella Academy was such a good series of graphic novels was because it was so unique. It wasn't so much the story of superheroes, but the story of an unstable bunch of misfits, a shockingly dysfunctional family, and a bunch of situations that were never explained, but simply accepted. Chimpanzee cop? Awesome. Gorilla Martian body? Sure. Children being born the same moment a wrestler gives a flying elbow to a freaking alien? Whew, sign me up. The writers here acted like they were so scared of the audience asking questions that they went out of their way to answer them ad nauseum, or even dumb down events for simple consumption. We live in a post-Deadpool world, guys. We're not impressed by pairing pop songs with action. We've seen weirder crap. We've seen Old Spice commercials, for God's sake. We're on board. Comic book movies aren't having a moment. They're the current mainstay. So if you're gonna claim to give us something innovative, you better deliver.
We have a great job. The best job. We get to visit exotic places, meet new people, and then kill them.
That's straight from goddamn Deadpool. Now, this is just my take on the show, and I know, you shouldn't judge an adaptation by its source material, so am I being too hard on the series? Let me know down below. Do you want more videos? Then click to the left of my face or check us out on Roku and Plex. Once again, thanks to our awesome Patreon sponsors, and thank you for watching. See you, Space Cowboy.